in the aftermath of Zohran Mamdani's victory in the New York City mayor Democratic primary, we have seen an outpouring of rabid and vile Islamophobia, not only from conservatives, but also from Democrats. I'm not going to bloviate too much on this topic specifically because I did talk about this in the last episode we did. That video is on my YouTube channel. It was posted yesterday. It's about an hour long, but I do dive into the disgusting rhetoric from both Democrats and Republicans in totality. However, there was a radio interview that came out over the weekend where New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand called into a public radio station. I think she called into the Brian Lehrer show and basically said that Zohran Mamdani is a terrorist looking to institute or looking to commit global jihad. I am not being hyperbolic. I wish I were. Sometimes I ham up the rhetoric on this show for entertainment purposes because I am doing a fucking YouTube show. In this instance, I am not. The reason that I am not hamming up this subject is because it is disgusting. I would never compromise. I would never attempt to upplay racism or Islamophobia. I upplay the rhetoric when I'm talking about Republicans being stupid or Democrats being useless, because that is not dangerous rhetoric. This is. Do not misunderstand me. This blatant Islamophobia is dangerous to not only Zohran Mamdani, but to the Muslim community as a whole. You would not be able to say this about any other sort of ethnic group or any other religious group, but because he's Muslim, this type of rhetoric is allowed and encouraged. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna take a listen. This is a 6-minute long interview. I'm gonna play it back on 1.25 speed, courtesy of Barbarism Critic on Twitter. This is the most racist, absurd, unhinged thing a Democrat senator not named Fetterman has said in a long time. Absolutely revolting. In a just world, she would be forced to resign. In a just world, she would be exiled. She would be excommunicated from whatever little social circle she has. This is absolutely disgusting. This is a shameful way to talk about a human being. This is the type of rhetoric that should only be rhetoric that is this hateful has no place unless you're talking about an objectively disturbing political figure. Somebody like Adolf Hitler, someone like Osama bin Laden. But even then, resorting to blatant Islamophobia is wrong, because it's just not an appropriate way to have a conversation.
I wanted to ask two very pertinent questions about the threats facing the Jewish community, unfortunately, from Zohran Mamdani. There was a bill that I was reading about that, unfortunately, he wants to target synagogues and Jewish institutions which donate to nonprofits, which are medical institutions like United Hatzalah and Magan David Adam, which is like the Jewish Red Cross. So how do we make sure that Jewish institutions are protected from his plans to punish and fine our institutions which fundraise these medical nonprofits?
This person is hallucinating. Any of these Zionists freaking out over Zohran Mamdani targeting Jewish New Yorkers, they are having delusions. They are paranoid. They are creating their own reality. There is nothing anti-Semitic about Zohran Mamdani. I wish that people recognize the fact that Eric Adams was hanging out with fucking Sneeko and Amber Rose, two out and about anti-Semites, and yet Zohran Mamdani is somehow the threat to Jewish New Yorkers.
To work both here in the United States and in Israel and other countries in the world? And also, how can we hold Mr. Mamdani accountable for his glorifying association of Hamas and other terror bombings of the Intifada in 1990s, where over 1,000 Jewish Israelis were killed, to his revisionist Holocaust knowledge, to the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, where Jews were mass exterminated and faced threats? He compared when Jews were killed to when Jews fought back against Nazis. It's quite despicable. I'm sorry.
This guy is hallucinating. None of this is true. None of this happened. This is all fabricated. This is all farcical. This is all conjured up because of Zohran Mamdani's religious affiliation as a Shia Muslim. And that is important. That designation is important, and I will explain a little bit later on.
Thank you for your call. There's a lot in there, Senator, some of which may be inaccurate. So I don't know. I can't fact check everything in real time, but do you know any of that to be inaccurate or accurate?
This is all inaccurate because it is the same fucking AIPAC talking points that every other fucking political figure has attempted to target Zohran Mamdani with. It does not deviate from the bullet list at all. It's fake. It's not true. This did not happen. He did not say globalize the intifada. He did not say that he's going to enact global jihad on the Jewish people. The only thing that he said was that Israel should not be killing Palestinians. That's not anti-Semitic. That's being a fucking moral and conscious human being.
Including the original premise that he would somehow target synagogues if they were contributing to groups like Hatzalah, ambulance services, in a way that he could hurt the synagogues. I just don't want to give out information that's false, but I also don't want to shrink from information that's true.
Well, the caller is exactly the New York constituents that I've spoken to that are alarmed. They are alarmed by past public statements. They are alarmed by past positions, particularly references to global jihad.
This never happened. This is so fucking dangerous. This is indescribably dangerous. Global jihad is bad, obviously, but Zohran Mamdani is not participating in it. In fact, jihadism kills more Muslims annually than anything else. Muslims do not like jihadism. Kirsten Gillibrand lives in a fucking AIPAC-sponsored bubble where the only New Yorkers that she fucking talks about are Zionist Israelis. Normal, everyday Jewish New Yorkers do not give a fuck about Israel. The general public in the United States does not give a fuck about Israel. Do you know why? Because they don't live in Israel. They live in New York. Oh my God, it's not a revolutionary fucking concept. I'm not over here doing organic chemistry. If you live in New York and you pay $3,700 a month for a fucking 700 square foot apartment in the Upper East Side, you're gonna like the guy who says, hey, your rent should be frozen. Your rent should be reduced. You're not gonna give a fuck about what anything is happening over in Israel.
This is a very serious issue because people that glorify the slaughter of Jews create fear in our communities. The global intifada is a statement that means destroy Israel and kill all the Jews. So
it does not mean that. That's also incorrect. It's incorrect twice. He did not say that. He never said globalize the intifada. Second, intifada just means struggle. Islamophobia is so pervasive in the United States that white people hear a fucking Arabic word and they're like, oh my God, jihad! Woo! Like, control yourself. You're being weird. You're an abnormal human being.
These are the kinds of things that if Mr. Mamdani is elected our mayor, we'll need to assure all New Yorkers that he will protect all Jews and protect houses of worship and protect funding for not-for-profits that meet the needs of these communities. Those are the things he'll have to do as our mayor.
He would certainly say that he has committed to protecting all Jews.
I will say Zohran Mamdani has committed to increasing anti-hate education by 800%. Do you know what that potentially could include? Highlighting the differences between Zionism and Judaism, because conflating those two things, unironically, is more dangerous to Jewish people than being anti-Zionist. You can't conflate a fucking fascist political movement like Zionism with the entirety of Judaism, because then people see what Israel is doing and they're like, the Jews, I told you, like normal people see what Israel's doing and they're like, see, the Jews again, the Jews control the government, and that shit is wildly anti-Semitic. That shit is wildly dangerous to the Jewish population. But the Democrats are so fucking blinded by their AIPAC money that they actually don't give a fuck about Jewish people. The only Jewish people they give a fuck about are the ones who line their pockets from AIPAC.
He was in New York as mayor of New York. Do you dispute? Do you doubt that?
Well, one of the issues I did talk to him yesterday was exactly this issue, and he has agreed to work with me on this and to protect all residents. So this is something I care deeply about, and so I will be an advocate on these issues. These are things that I think are important to New Yorkers, and I will work with him when he gets elected, if he gets elected, to make sure everyone is protected. I also, on the federal level, work to get resources for all our religious sites in the state and in the city. I lead the letter for funding for I lead the letter for the funding to protect synagogues and churches and temples and places of worship across our city and state. And these are things that he has.
What about Muslim places of worship, Kirsten Gillibrand? Do you try to get fundings for whatever they may be called? So much so that you forgot what the fucking name of the Muslim place of worship is? It is a fucking mosque. Holy shit. This is what I mean. This is why Islamophobia, this is how deep Islamophobia is in the United States of America. She can't even recall the word mosque. You recall church. You recall synagogue. You recall temples. Other places of worship. Yeah, like a fucking mosque, Kirsten Gillibrand.
Assured me in my one conversation that he will protect everyone, but I understand why people are concerned because of past statements, and so this is just an issue that I will work with him on for sure.
I just feel compelled to say, we can find no evidence that he has supported Hamas or has supported violent jihad, as that caller was asserting. Can you?
Again, Brian, I don't have all the data and information, and I've never sat down with Mr. Mamdani, so I've asked.
So then what the fuck are you, so why the fuck are you here? This is what I don't understand. You, as an elected official, have a duty to make sure that when you have a discussion on something, you have all of the fucking facts and information readily available if they are available. That, however, the latter only applies to developing stories. Zohran Mamdani and his candidacy is not a fucking developing story. He's been running for mayor of New York City for 8 fucking months. His entire life has been dug up and shown to the general public, and at no fucking point did he ever espouse terrorist sentiment. At no point did he ever say that he was pro-Hamas. At no point did he ever materially benefit a terrorist organization. You are living in a fucking paranoid delusion. It is disingenuous of you to call up and say that he is promoting global jihad and then walk back that fucking statement by saying, oh, actually, I don't have all of the facts and information. I'm a sitting U.S. senator who is so blinded by my Islamophobia that I can't be bothered to do this due diligence about this young man who's running to be the mayor of fucking New York City. It is a fucking disgrace. She is a fucking shit stain on the underpants of the state of New York.
I'm going to have that meeting. We will talk through all these things. He can tell me his views of the world, and I can learn them firsthand. I think the reference that I had read was global intifada specifically, which has very serious meanings that are violent and destructive. So
which it doesn't. Says, and I pressed him on this on the show on Monday, but which he says are not calls for violence because intifada is a much broader term involving all kinds of uprisings and resistance and things like that. So I just want to be clear about how at least he defines it. And maybe he needs to be more clear. I don't mean this. I don't mean that. He did say here that he didn't want to be the...
No, fuck that. Fuck that. How can you be more clearer? It's not your fault if someone doesn't understand what you're saying when you explain your fucking position. What the fuck are we doing? If Zohran Mamdani clearly says that globalizing the intifada means pushing back against oppression and violence, it's not his fucking fault if Senator Gillibrand is still living in her fucking fantasy world. That's not his fault. He can't be any fucking clearer. They want him to like denounce his fucking religion because, oh my god, Islam is scary. Oh my god, I live in New York and Islam is so scary. Like, even though there are fucking fundamentalist Christians who commit murders, who do mass shootings, like, what the fuck are we doing here? This fear exclusive to Muslims is blatant Islamophobia. There's no pearl clutching when a white nationalist does a fucking mass murder. All there is are thoughts and prayers. But when a fucking Shia Muslim wins the Democratic mayor's primary, they're like, this guy needs to be fucking deported. We need to take 8 of his fingers and send him back to Uganda.
Police even as the mayor of New York if he's elected. But I do also want to be clear that he said he does not support violent intifada. Is that fair?
So Brian, I didn't hear your exchange with him, but if I was speaking to him directly, I would simply say that is not how the words are received. And it doesn't matter what meaning you have in your brain, it is not how the word is received. And when you use the word like intifada to many Jewish Americans and Jewish New Yorkers, that means you are permissive for violence against Jews. It is a serious word.
Oh my God,
this,
dude, this is such a fucking reach.
Meaning,
Like,
it has been used for wars across time and violence and destruction and slaughter and murder against the Jews. It is a harmful, hurtful, inappropriate word for anyone who wants to represent a city as diverse as New York City with 8 million people. And I would be very specific in these words, and I would say you may not use them again if you expect to represent everyone ever again, because
yeah, really rich that this fucking dumbass is talking about specificity in language when she literally 3 minutes ago said that he's calling for global jihad. Go fuck yourself. This is so sad. This is so sad how a human being is able to act like this in public as an elected official, and there isn't a fucking mass call for her to resign from her own fucking party. She's not taking accountability. She's not apologizing for being misinformed. She's doubling down on her vile Islamophobia because she knows that this rhetoric is permissible, accepted, and in some cases even encouraged.
They're received as hateful and divisive and harmful, and that's it. So I appreciate that he told you he didn't mean that, and that's great. That's
and
a great
I think
place to start.
also clarify, or he was clarifying that he never said globalize the intifada. He was asked in an interview if he would denounce the phrase globalize the intifada, and then that led to this kind of conversation, that you were just referring to. But that he was never out there saying globalize the intifada. He was asked about other people who used it. So just to be precise about what happened there. Yes.
Well, as a leader of a city as diverse as New York City with 8 million people, as the largest Jewish population in the country, he should denounce it, and that's it. Period.
Yeah, okay. Shut the fuck up, dumbass. What a loser. Like, it's a word, dude. It's a fucking Arabic word. She's freaking out over a fucking word. A fucking word. This is, like, what are we doing? She's still trying to pin this on him. It never happened. She's a fucking she's having a paranoid schizophrenic episode.
You can't celebrate it, you can't value it, you can't lift it up. And that is the challenge that Jewish New Yorkers have had, certainly since October 6th. October 7th. It is exactly what they have felt. It is why Jewish students in our universities have felt unsafe. It is why Jewish students have felt that their schools did not have their back and cared about them or their learning, because the people doing these protests use words that have meanings that are far more violent and horrific than they may have intended. But when you hear things like intifada, when you hear things like jihad, when you hear from the river to the sea, it is received as slaughter the Jews and destroy Israel. Period. It's how it's received. And if you talk to any group, you talk to our LGBTQ community, you talk to our Black community, you talk to our Hispanic community, there are words and there are imagery and there are things that are said that they will hear it and feel it as a dagger to their throat. And so if you want to be a leader, you have to recognize how these things are felt and received. And
yeah, because those specific words were targeted for a specifically hateful reason. Are you comparing intifada to the N-word, Kirsten Gillibrand? That is what you're doing. You're comparing intifada to racial slurs, to words that were used by an oppressive class historically to demonize and dehumanize these individuals. Intifada is not that. It is a gross and dangerous conflation that exists beyond reality. This is so sad. This is so sad. If intifada is such a bad word, why are you saying it? Because it's not. You're trying to use Islam scary, Muslim scary, brown man scary. It's not gonna work. No one gives a fuck about this like how you do, because you've gotten $1 million from fucking AIPAC. This is why you're having a moment. This is why you are freaking out to the umpteenth degree, because you are a fucking shill. You are bought and paid for. You are a sullied public servant who's received nearly $1 million from AIPAC to spread this dangerous, dehumanizing, and Islamophobic rhetoric. Look at this. This is you. This is you, lady. $997,622 received from the pro-Israel lobby. You And fucking Chuck Schumer and this fucking ghoul, Nick LaLota, who now represents my new district. 1.7 million for Charles Entertainment Schumer. We got fucking Richie Torres, Tom Swazi, Hakeem Jeffries. You guys are fucking gross. You guys are disgusting. I hope that all of you are primaried in your next election, and I hope that you are forced to live the rest of your life in fucking shame, because that's what you are. You are shameful, disgusting, Islamophobic individuals.
Saying there should be no word police is irresponsible, because as a leader, you have to protect everyone. Period.
One more thing before you go, for you as a member.
One more thing before you go. Do you think that we should nuke Iran? This argument, this demonization of Islam is rooted, of course, in the September 11th attacks. A tragedy that befell, an unnecessary tragedy that befell the United States that killed nearly 3,000 New Yorkers. What conservatives and what people like Kirsten Gillibrand do, however, is weaponize this tragedy without talking about the actual context surrounding it and the events that preceded it. What am I talking about? Let's begin with Osama bin Laden, for example. Osama bin Laden was a Muslim extremist. Nobody is going to argue against that. The atrocity that he committed on 9/11 is reprehensible, deplorable, and just downright disgusting. However, extremist Muslims come from one section of Islam. Islam, like every other fucking religion, has many different branches. There are two that are dominant, that being Sunni and Shia, but there are many different Muslim disciplines of Islam. If I'm not using the correct verbiage, I apologize. I don't know if they're sects, disciplines. Very much like how in Christianity, there are many different religions that fall under that umbrella. If someone tells you they're Christian, you would be ignorant to assume that they're Catholic or Protestant or Lutheran or Orthodox, because there are so many different denominations. Islam is much of the same. You have Sunni Muslims, which make up anywhere from like 80 to 90% or 87 to 90% of the Muslim community. Then you have Shia Islams, which Shia Muslims, pardon me, I said Sunni Islams as well. I meant Sunni Muslims. My apologies. You have Shia Muslims as well, which make up 10 to 13% of the population. When Westerners talk about jihad, when they talk about Islamic extremism, they are talking specifically about Salafism, which is a fundamental interpretation of Sunni Islam. This does not mean that Sunni Islam is in itself an extremist interpretation of the Quran. But Salafists use Sunni Islam as a justification for their jihad. Their jihad, by the way, which has killed more fucking Muslims than it has white people. Osama bin Laden was a Sunni Muslim. He was a jihadist. Zohran Mamdani is a Shia Muslim. That is the non-jihadist section of Islam. There are also Muslims who don't align with any section of Islam. They read the Quran and follow it however they may be. Very much like you might have Christians who don't associate with Catholicism or Protestantism, and they just read the Bible for fucking fun. Conservatives in particular weaponize this ignorance, this misunderstanding. They use it as rage bait because they know that it works. Charlie Kirk over the weekend was talking about how, imagine telling New Yorkers on September 12th that in 24 years, a Muslim would be the next mayor of New York City. How about this, Charlie Kirk? What if you told New Yorkers on September 12th that Saudi Arabia was still a top ally of the United States? Saudi Arabia was Osama bin Laden's country of origin. Saudi Arabia was where nearly all of the individuals on 9/11 called home. Donald Trump is best buddies with Mohammed bin Salman. The Bush family had business partnerships with the bin Laden family. Ronald Reagan and the CIA armed, funded, and trained Osama bin Laden in the Mujahideen in their fight against the USSR. This is so fucking disgusting that Islam is used as rage bait because conservatives and Democrats are too fucking stupid, either that or they're too fucking racist, to actually educate people on the details, the necessary details of geo-fucking-politics. To see Zohran Mamdani and think that he is a Salafist Muslim because of what happened on 9/11 is fucking disgusting. It is shameful. There is no human being that should be allowed to talk about these subjects with this much hatred behind them. They should be treated like a fucking animal. What the fuck are we doing? How are you so emboldened to be such a hateful and a disgusting person? You should be laughed at. You should not be taken seriously. If you say this type of shit in public, you should be bullied out of the fucking room for being just such an ignorant fucking loser.